So when you're looking for your key poses, usually I am looking for contacts. So when the feet touch the ground, this allows us to basically block in whenever there's a motion going through. I look for extreme poses. So like in this case, we've got punches. The most extreme point of a punch, or like when the character holds right here, that would be a good key to have, versus this one here, that would be a good key to have. So you're finding these kind of big moments in your shot. Another way to look at it is your storytelling poses. So what poses would you need to tell a story? So in this case, we've got our first pose. We'll call that our first pose. If I just went here to the end, it's such a weird pose to end on, but we're going to end on it anyway. So if we just went there and we go from here to here, what does the story say? Well, the animation is literally just someone turning around going, huh, and just lifting their arms. That's missing the entire point of what's happening in this shot. If we're just going from there to there, we don't get anything. So we need more poses to tell the story. Now, storytelling poses are different than your key poses. Storytelling poses, you actually don't really need that much. So in this case, for storytelling poses, I would probably want like right here. That would tell a little bit of the story of like, yes, we've got it. And then I would probably add a punch right in there. So storytelling. And then I don't need every individual punch. So honestly, that could be enough for storytelling. Let's see how it feels. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that gets the story. It's not super clear, but we get the point. It just basically a way for us to move the character across the scene and get an idea. And usually with storytelling poses, I try to have, typically it depends on the length of the shot, but even for pretty long shots, I will aim to have 12 or less poses in there. If you need more than 12 poses to tell the story in one shot, typically, not all the time, but typically it kind of means that the story is a little complicated. So you should, like 8 to 12 is a good range, but sometimes you can get away with 3, and that's fine. Any more than 12, and it's, like I said, it tends to make stories feel just too busy for us as an audience. So try to avoid that, or try to simplify the story if you can. Now, in terms of key poses are not the same as keys. This is where it gets confusing. Sometimes we call these golden poses, just to differentiate the name. But key poses, golden poses, are the poses that we need to lay out the motion, to make sure that we capture as much of the big changes in the shot as possible. So this will be, for example, getting every punch in here. So let's kind of add those in here. So I'm using the extremes of the hand to set my keys. Honestly, when you're setting these keys, it doesn't really matter exactly which frame it's on. The main goal here is just so that you capture each individual moment. And then I'll probably go... There needs to be one in the middle here, I feel. Otherwise, we're just going from here to here, and that's not super clear. Now, this would be... I would consider this a little bit more of a breakdown, because there's no really key moment here. It's just transitioning from one pose to the next, and that's about it. If anything, I would try to put the key where the foot is about to contact the ground. But the big thing is it contacts the ground, I think, on frame 100 here, and then we end on 101. So I'm not going to put two keys right next to each other. So let's say we've got a situation here where do we put a key? Well, I don't know. I can't really find one good, clear, like, pose that, yeah, that I need to save this pose. So what do you look for? Well, there's a few different things you can look for. You can look for moments where things stop. So for example, here we have the elbow coming back and swinging down, and you can see that the elbow, screen right, stops right here. It comes back and then holds. So that might be a good spot to put a key in, because it's going to end a motion. And this is the big thing with keys, is that we want to use them to block off moments. You don't always have to do this, but when you're doing it this way, what it helps is as you go into splining later on, or as you start refining and adding more keys later on, you're already going to have these moments thought out and keyed. And all we have to do now is transition between them. If I just pick a totally random moment here, I haven't put in the stop yet, so I'll need to do that later. So in my mind, might as well do it now. And yes, Agathia, this stream, or specifically yesterday's stream, where I tried the extremes workflow, was inspired by Sir Wade's video. And if anyone hasn't checked it out, definitely check it out. It's really informative. I had never tried the extremes workflow before, so I wanted to give it a try, and we did it on stream. It did not go well. We got the hips in, and I feel like the hips were pretty good for a first pass. But yeah, for this type of shot, it was more of a pain than anything else. Yeah, it is a very weird workflow. It is very good, and I can really see the appeal if you were to do like a subtle shot where a character is just kind of doing these small changes, because then you don't really have that many keys to deal with anyway, and it just blocks things out very quickly. So if you have a character just kind of standing here and going like that, a little hand wave, you don't need a lot of keys on the body, you don't need a lot of keys on the head, there's not a lot of big motion in the body, it's just some weird hand gesture or some arm gestures. That could work really, really well for a big shot, like, or a big movement like this, where a character is going all over the place. I found it was more tricky than anything else, mostly because you can't get the full pose in, and it made it much harder to like plan out, okay, what are the arms going to do, the line of action. And then when I got to the spine, that's when things started to go a little weird, because I kept having to go back to the hips, readjust those to get the line of the spine. So, not great for this situation, at least in my experience. Now, to be fair, it's also practice. The more you practice with the workflow, the better you'll get at it. Now, with that said, one thing to keep in mind is that you don't have to use just one workflow. So for example, I could start off with pose to pose here, and we could get in most of our poses on this shot. And then as I'm breaking it down, as I'm putting in-betweens, I can go back to an extremes workflow and then just key in all the small movement with an extremes workflow. There's no rule that says if you follow one workflow, you have to go through it to the end. No. I could block it out pose to pose, get my main motion, my main good, super appealing poses, and then everything else is done with the extremes or a layered workflow. It's very powerful in that sense, and as a sniper, that's exactly it. The extremes workflow is it's very close to rotoscoping. If you're not careful, you really have to exaggerate because you're really looking at every little detail. So instead, by using something like a post-pose mixed with extremes, you would be able to exaggerate your posing to begin with, and then just capture the small details with the extremes workflow. So that could be a good combination. And this is actually something I'll do often, is I'll mix workflows. Typically, I will mix the pose to pose and straight ahead workflow. So I'll pose everything out, get everything right, and then I'll just go straight ahead between certain in-betweens to create a nice feeling of motion. Now, let's actually take a look at our keys here and see how things are looking. So we've got our key here, doot, 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 doot. Great. That's telling the story pretty well for the most part. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 keys. Now, we do have kind of these big ranges right here, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're doing your first pass blocking. You don't really have to put that many keys in there. As long as the main idea is selling, not just the story, but now it's the main motions and the main kind of movements are working. But there is one thing here that I would like to do. So if I'm just going from this pose to this pose, you can see that the body is just kind of a flip down in a diagonal way right here. Well, that's missing a big moment here, which is this, where the body goes up before it comes down. So I would put this in as one of my key poses. Now, when we see this, you really feel those elbows hitting now, versus just before we were going from here to here, which almost feels like the elbows are coming up, like the character is doing this versus up and then down. So again, keys here are to help sell what's going to happen in the shot. Now, when you're starting to get to this point, the line between what is a breakdown and what is a key pose, it's kind of like we're starting to go into the gray zone. What some people would consider key, what some people would consider a breakdown. Is that a problem? Not at all. It really is just kind of making sure you have enough information in there. So I'm going to go through here, and I feel like I need one more right here, which is going to be when the back foot contacts the ground right there. That's going to help describe that moment a little bit better. And I think that's like right around 57, 58. So we'll put it there. Okay. So that should be, and you can just play through your shot just with your keys that you've drawn out here and see how that feels. That's not bad. Okay. So if I can just scrub through my keys here and get a good feeling for the shot, well, that's a good sign. So from here, let's actually start blocking things out. Now, I will say I normally block things out in splines nowadays. It's just my preferred workflow. I feel it just works faster. For the sake of the demo here and to kind of keep in the spirit of pose to pose and what we're really supposed to be looking at when we're doing pose to pose, I'm going to go back to a stepped workflow. It's honestly going to be the same basic ideas, but with stepped, we're just going to be focusing on those poses. We're not going to have any in-betweens, which is really what you should be looking at when you're starting a pose-to-pose workflow. You don't care about the in-betweens. So let's start posing that out. Now, when I'm posing out for a pose-to-pose workflow, there's a few things to watch out for. One of them is that you don't want to spend too much time on each pose right at the start. Mostly because we don't know if it's going to work or not. What I mean by that is I want to get a feel for the animation here, not... Let's actually just close his eyes for the whole thing here. I want to get an idea for the animation and how it flows from one pose to the next. And I don't want to get caught in trying to get every single pose absolutely perfect right away. Because if I do, and then I later find out that, oh wait, something is not working. A pose just doesn't flow well into another pose, whatever. Something is not working correctly. I will then have to redo a lot of work. So I'm just gonna close his eyes right here. This way we're not gonna get any creepy eyes. Okay. So, how do you find any foot contact when the foot is cut off in the reference? You look at the knees, or you look at the legs. So as I'm looking at the feet here, or at the knees, I'm trying to watch when does my foot stop. So you can see the legs coming down, 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 down. The knee keeps going down. And then right here, let's frame through. See how the knee stops? It's bent here. You can feel that a little bit of a bend. Then it's straight, and then it just stays straight. So the contact has to be right in here. I'm assuming it's probably right on frame 100, or if I really bend my toes down, I might be contacting my toes right here on frame 99. Same thing here. Watching that knee. See how it's moving back, and then suddenly here it stops. That tells me that the contact should have happened right in here somewhere, because my foot has hit the ground and now my leg is absorbing the contact and stopping me. That's where we usually take a step in order to either stop ourselves or to keep moving. Either way, our knee is going to straighten and something's going to react to it. So for example, in a walk, it's kind of the opposite, where a leg swings through, it's going to be straight, and then straight, and then even if you don't see the foot, what you're going to see is the bend of the knee happening. So you know that the contact doesn't happen here. It happens somewhere in between these 2 points because there's a change in the knee. So that's basically it. You're just watching for the landmarks. If you can't see any of the legs, you're watching for how the body reacts. And the further you go away from the leg, the less likely you're going to get right on the contact frame. As long as you have like close enough that you're not ignoring the contact completely. That's the main thing. If you've just got a headshot and nothing else, at that point, you don't really need it, as long as you're making sure to animate the hips. That's the important thing. Or like an upper body shot even. Like, for example, this shot here, I really don't need to worry if I missed the contact. I just want to make sure that I'm moving the hips correctly. In this case, because I can see the legs, I need to know where those contacts are to properly get some good weight in here. Okay, so let's block this out quickly here. I'm going to just pose out the hand a little bit here. Ooh, that middle finger. Why did it go? Oh, I got the metacarpal. That does not help when you get an extra control on just one finger. Okay. We talked about hand posing in one of the streams. When you're doing fists, really make sure you do not get the boring, just every finger even fist. It is not a fun and interesting fist pose. Fists should always have some sort of silhouette to it. So, for example, when I come in here, I want the slope in the knuckles right there. Just a little bit. It's not going to be much, but it'll make it look a little bit better. Okay. And then let's just get the thumb in the right spot here. Okay. There we go. Boop, boop. I'm not worried about getting this perfect. This is not an animation about getting good hand poses. This is just blocking this up. Look at that ugly hand. So this is another thing. Even though I pose it out, you always have to watch your silhouette of the fist. That looks boring. That looks interesting. Hands, we really want to watch the silhouette of the hand. It's like, if you pose out the hand like this, it's just a flat piece. You want to put a little 3/4 in there. Okay. The arm comes out. I'm going to be animating this in FK. Honestly, there's no reason why it can't be an IK. This is just more personal preference. Okay. I should probably tighten that fist up a little bit, but we can get that in a little later. As long as you have some sort of hand pose, that's the important thing. Try not to just start a shot with no hand pose. That's just not that interesting. So one thing I'm trying to look for here is the reversal. So we've got this moment here and then here. And if we were to look at the line of action for these, what's essentially happening is this pose, we've got a line of action that goes through here. And let's actually get that knee in the right direction, like that. So it's kind of this C shape in the spine. And we get this big compression. What that means is in this moment, I'm going to want to exaggerate the contrast of that. So it's going to be a little bit more like this. So we get that really big feeling of a impact in there. Now here, this is going to be pretty much just straight and kind of like that. So here we're not having a reversal, but I want to have a feeling of a weight change in the body. So what I mean by the weight is you can feel how that line is pulling up a little bit more here versus here where it's kind of in the center. So is this a big thing? No, but it is something I'm aiming for even early on, is I want to get that built into my posing. So let's kind of push this pose a little bit here. Get that line in the body a little stronger. Move the hips forward. Always look at your pose from multiple angles. If you're not looking at your pose from multiple angles, you're going to be messing something up. It doesn't mean that you have to make it look super appealing from every angle. But if you're not looking at it from multiple angles, you're going to get issues where for example, what I was having is the character's too far back here, especially since I can't see his feet here. Like, this looks decent, but you look at it from the side and it's like, yeah, he's going to fall over. So you're going to end up with weight issues in your shot very quickly. Okay. So what I'm looking for here is the line on the side of the body here. I want to make sure that it's not perfectly vertical. I want some sort of angle there. Okay. I think this shoulder can come up a little bit. It'll add some tension. Now, is this pose perfect? No, not at all. But I want to get it in quick. Let's call this pose done-ish for now. I want to get it in quick so that I can go to the next pose and start to build in that change in between them and start to feel that out. Once again, if you are posing these out and you are putting so much time into refining a pose and making it just absolutely perfect, you're going to end up missing the motion, or if suddenly you do have to change the motion, it's going to feel kind of weird. And you're going to have to redo some work on the first pose anyway. So what I'm doing here is I'm just comparing in my reference what's happening to the hip. It's moving left and it's moving up. So I'm going to try and capture that feeling in my key and try to exaggerate. I really want to push that movement left here. I'm also moving him up slightly. Probably bring the hips a little lower here. And this comes from, I know in my reference that the hips are actually starting to come down by frame 44. So they're going to go up higher and around frame 42. So this is where you really need to understand your reference. As you're animating, study your reference. When you find your keys, know where things are transitioning. So here the hips are going to start coming forward and the body is going to start coming in here. I can actually push the body further forward on this pose. So this is, again, because I'm now looking between these two poses, I can start to look at the neck here and see how I want to push this through. So I kind of want him to, let's not go so far forward here. Go forward there, and kind of that neck eases a little bit right there from the side view. Okay. Let's kind of get the arms into place. That's going to help us figure out where the pose is supposed to go. Do not forget about the clavicles. Thinking of my silhouette. How can I push this to be a little clearer so his arm just doesn't cover his head? So something like this. I'm thinking of the line of action through the arms. If I have the arm up here, that could make a nice like U-shaped line of action. If I start bringing it down, I want to be careful that I don't, it's going to be the clavicle that does this, that I don't get this kind of weird, like, let me actually draw it out. Here, step down like that. I want to connect the arms through together. I'm not worried too much about getting this, again, perfect. That's not the goal here. We can always go through and refine the poses after. It's about capturing the feeling of movement and really capturing that whole, the energy of the whole thing first. I feel like this arm could be a little bit more bent so we get that nice, everything kind of coming up at an angle. Same thing with this arm. Move it out. That arm is too vertical. I'm just going to bring it through here. The angle is going to help add more energy to the whole thing. Okay, so we're feeling that change there. Now, what else is happening? And this is the nice thing with pose to pose. If you use it correctly, you can get a lot of the small details that you would get with the extremes method as well. So for example, here I'm looking at my two poses, and as my character goes up here, One thing I'm noticing is that the head is actually going down. See that? How everything else is going kind of up slightly, but the head goes down. Not only that, but so does the neck. See how low my neck goes here? Right there? That tells me that as my character is coming up here, I'm actually stretching him too much. I need to start bringing that body in a little bit more and starting to curl it. That's going to help bring the neck down. And then I can take the head and just kind of bring it forward, or I could even translate it down if I wanted to exaggerate this. So we get this. And then let's actually exaggerate this here. Bring that head up and straighten up his spine just a little bit. Okay. We're going to exaggerate these poses a lot more in just a second. One thing I do need to do is make sure I bring this foot up. That's going to help tie everything together. Okay. Let's see. Whoop. Even though we're not seeing the leg, I do want to make sure I'm getting it into a decent position. Okay. The knee, I think we'll keep it out just a little bit more. I do want to break out the silhouette, I think. I could keep it out this way, but the silhouette's going to be more interesting if I do this visually. Okay. So we've got that. Is it good? No. Hardly. Look at that side here. See how it doesn't change between these two poses? That is definitely something I need to push in just a second. But before I do that, I want to get my last moment here. So I'm kind of counting these first three poses as one moment where he goes up and then down. And then from there, the pose is going to reset itself. So let's get those in first, and then we'll start to refine them a little bit more, make the poses more appealing. So what's happening here? Hips come down. Okay. Move that. Hips move a little to the left. And do they go forward? Yeah, there's some residual forward motion here. Okay, so we're starting to get that hip motion coming through here. I feel like I could probably push it a little higher here, but again, it is going to reach its peak a little earlier. Okay, now this foot here, it comes up higher. I'm going to get that knee up, and I'm going to exaggerate this a little bit more. Now, as I'm exaggerating this, I know that the leg comes up later on in the shot, but you see how it never really kicks up? It just kind of sticks out for balance. So what that means is in this moment, I could really exaggerate that kick up and bring the knee like way up here. Let's get that other knee to not break on him. That'll be nice. It's always a good thing when the knees don't break on you when you're moving. So this is where the exaggeration comes in. Even if my pose, we can see that the knee is angled downwards. I could follow that. There's nothing wrong with that. Or I could try to exaggerate. In this case, I'm going to try and exaggerate. If I feel it's too much, I can, worst case scenario, I tone it down. Like, it's not a big deal. So the big thing here is going to be the hips. Let's get those hips angled correctly, because that changes the whole body. Okay. And then gonna be a little bit more forward on that side. Okay. I'm just looking at the angle, trying to get it to flow with the legs. And then from here, whoop, really curl that body in. And as we curl this, you'll notice that, oh, he's quite a bit forward here. So take the hips, bring those back. Now there's also a twist in the body, so that's going to help as well. So he kind of twists this way, and then I can push that. Okay. Now as I look at this, the head basically goes down. So if we watch the head, it goes down, but it's still going screen left. So if I look at my head here, it's kind of going screen left, but I may want to push that just a little bit more. We get something like that. Okay, so that's the body. The head, gonna angle downwards here. The shoulders, they're gonna come down a little bit, but let's actually get the arms in position first. Yeah, that hand definitely gonna need a little bit more of a fist pose in there. Tighten up. Okay. Let's actually do that right now because it's gonna annoy me. A bit like that. And then the other thing that's really gonna make this feel like a fist is the thumb. Making sure it's in the right spot. See, if you are doing this shot alone without explaining how much time it will take you, something like this, it's hard to say. Probably like, I don't know, to finish the shot, maybe a few hours, like to get it to polished. It wouldn't take all that long, really. It's a very simple shot. We're only doing like 60 frames. Not much is happening. So it really wouldn't take too long. It depends on what level of polish you're aiming for, really. That would be the big time question. Is, are you trying to go for like really highly detailed polish? Is it going to be more just quick body mechanics? Maybe something like for a game? Are you going to be going into a full facial acting pass on it, which honestly there's not that much facial acting to begin with anyway. But yeah, it wouldn't take very long, a few hours. Same workflow as yesterday? No. Today we're doing the post-pose workflow just to compare and see what the difference is and what we get out of both workflows. Okay. So we can already feel that is working much better here. Now, one thing I'm not feeling is the line in the spine. See how even though we have this, we're really not feeling that compression. This line here on his body never changes. Now, if we look at our reference, it doesn't really change that much either. It's not that cartoony. Well, I want to exaggerate. I really want to get that feeling of compression in here and a curve change. So I'm going to exaggerate my posing. Try to really push. That foot needs to come in here a little bit more. There's an issue with the hips. I'm going to fix that in a bit. That's going to be more of a refining thing. But I want to push that feeling right away. There we go. See how now we feel that shape change on the chest there? That's what I wanted. And that's going to make it just feel that much stronger. The neck. See how we don't really see much of the neck on mine? It's not to say that I want to copy the reference, but I like the feeling of it. It makes me feel like I'm really pushing my head down. Whereas what I had here, we see a lot of the neck. We're seeing that whole edge in the front line. That's not great. Let's push that there. Now you really feel that tension in the body. So we are being inspired by our reference. This is why reference is very important. We are being inspired by it, but we are not copying it. We are just trying to pick elements and details in there that will help us make our shot even more dynamic and interesting. Okay. So we've got that motion here. How can I improve it? Well, one thing I'm noticing is that the hips kind of stop. See how they kind of go there, left, and then straight down? I kind of want to exaggerate that side-to-side motion. I'm just going to pull this back ever so slightly here. So we keep that momentum going forward. I always have the graph editor open, even if I'm working in stepped mode here. I will keep the graph editor open to get an idea of how the arcs are flowing and the ease in, ease out. Okay, now we know this moment is now working pretty well. So let's go in and, again, this is not going to be a full detail pass on making this absolutely perfect. But what I am going to do is I'm going to start trying to push this to be a little bit more visually interesting in terms of posing. So one thing I kind of want to do, how do I want to do this? Let's move this down. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this leg back. That way we avoid the, see how they're kind of feeling parallel here? Since I know that leg's going to pick up on the next pose, I can just bring that back. And now we've got a nice dynamic negative space between the legs and silhouette in the shape of the legs there. For the actual posing, let's simplify this just a bit. So one thing I did in order to get this pose here to read correctly, I had to twist the body around so that we get that forward shoulder here. This is what allowed us to get the line of action in here. Like that, see? So what that means is I want to contrast that. So if I bring the screen left shoulder forward at the beginning, and then even here just a little bit, that creates a bigger twist right here, and it's going to make the shape change more dynamic. So let's go through. Okay. I feel like I'm not getting the contrast in this pose as much as I should be. So I'm going to push the hips quite a bit more. How far are we going here? Rotate X. Yeah. So this is why the graph editor is helpful. I know that my max rotate X is here now. I have all of this room to play with the rotate X without worrying about it like creating a pop or a wiggle. So I could bring this back quite a ways. And now I can just push the curve of the body even more. And now we're really feeling that body kind of dropping a little bit right there. Oh, and it looks like I missed a control here. It does not have to be exactly the same, but when I am animating the spine, I really try to keep all the keys on the spine on the same value on the first pass. This helps to avoid any like weirdness and strange pops in the spine. Okay. I feel like the neck's too far forward here. That line of the neck there, it was just feeling a little off. There we go. So we've got that. That leg is a little out. Let's push that silhouette value a little bit more, and yeah, like that. It just felt like the leg was twisting in a weird way. Now, if I want to push this pose a bit more, I can bring the arms in a little bit more. I want to keep this out for silhouette value. And let's try not to have the elbow right over the upper arm here. I could exaggerate it the other way. Yeah, let's actually do that. That's gonna really get that nice like inner feeling there. So you can see how the elbows are coming in. I want to push that even more. Now they're twinning though. So I'm gonna bring this down, maybe just a little further out. Something like that. Always watch for twinning and all of that stuff. As much as we want to push our poses, we don't want to push them to the point where we're breaking things. There we go. So now we've got our first 3 poses there. And are they finished? No. I'm definitely going to be going through here and doing a refining pass on these to make sure that they feel as interesting and dynamic as possible. But they are working. That's the key. I want to work quickly so that I am getting something in here, but I also want to work smart and make sure that I am building things correctly. Now, one thing I'm noticing here is my rotate Y. Once again, it looks like I've missed a control. So let's bring that back here. And Noelia, hello! Hope you're doing well. And then let's double check our rotate Z because that's gonna have something missing too. worst case scenario, if I miss a control, it doesn't like end the world or anything like that. It's not going to be a failed animation, but if I don't catch it early, it's just going to make more discrepancies later, and then it's going to be harder to polish. That's the big thing. Do you think that it's helpful to key all the controllers at the beginning of your process? I've been doing that recently and noticing a significant impact on performance. There shouldn't really be that much of an impact normally when you're keying all the controls. Usually you'll start noticing an impact if you're starting to use a lot of animation layers, but the typical process is to key everything. If you're seeing a big impact on your performance as you're setting keys, normally what that kind of indicates is that there is something that is being keyed that maybe shouldn't be keyed. So this is going to depend on the rig, and if you're using a specific rig, let me know. But if that's happening, what you can try to do is just like select the main controls you're using, as many as you can, and then make a shelf button that just selects those and sets a key on those. This way it's only ever setting key on the ones that you need and not every single key. So an example would be sometimes you'll have rigs that have, well, let's say like this. You've got like free spine controls and IK/FK controls and all of these different attributes. And sometimes when you start setting keys on those, which you're not using those controls, or there's going to be like hand controls that are just like all of these extra things, that can start to impact performance, because it's not so much that the key is causing the issue. It's whatever it is controlling, that attribute, is trying to calculate and causing things to slow down. So I would watch out for maybe that. I was wondering if only selecting the main ones would be time consuming when you gradually needed more. I would try to, like, if I was to do something like that, I would try to select, how to phrase this? I would select all the ones that I know I'm going to be using for quite a while. So for example, in this case, even though I'm not using the finger controls, like I'm not posing the fingers, I'll still select them and key them. Even though I'm not using it on this rig, you've got the controls on the bottom that control like the leg stretch and things like that. I know that these won't slow things down, so I'll key them anyway. Might as well. Now, keys that I might not put on are the facial keys, because the face, you can always do a separate pass on just the face later on. So it's not a big deal if I miss out on them right now. Lip sync, like the mouth, I usually do lip sync on a separate pass, so if I miss the mouth keys, whatever. But we've got like these two neck controls. I very rarely use this neck control. This is kind of a polish neck control that I'll use once in a while, but not normally. I'll set a key on it anyway though, just in case. So yeah, it's not just the main controls, it's whatever control you're going to use in the near future that you know isn't going to cause an impact. If that makes sense. Okay, so we've got this. That's pretty good. Definitely I can still push this pose. This pose is just kind of feeling meh right now. Part of that is going to be pushing the line of action of the spine, for example. Not that. Give him beer belly. Like, just push that line in there. I feel like I could push the hips a lot more. The hips are just kind of going right to camera, which I'm not a fan of. Let's actually, as I'm mentioning that, I'm going to change it right away. So we've got that. Okay, that reads pretty well. Let's actually keep moving. We do not want to get stuck on the like, oh, I've got a few poses, let's start refining and polishing and whatnot. We've still got a whole bunch of shot left to go, and I might find out later that maybe I changed like an up and down later on, and now this up and down here is doing the same thing. It's repeating the same action. So I might have to come back in here and make it higher or lower. I don't want to get caught up in polish at this point. The more you get caught up in polish too soon, the more you're just going to end up redoing work. So it's a process. You want to block in fast. You don't want to get super like just like, you have to care about the poses and try to push your lines of action and things like that. But don't get so caught up in it that you're going to spend an hour doing it. Okay, so this is the contact pose. So first thing I do when I have a contact pose, just get the foot back on the ground. And in this case, I'm going to use a little foot roll as well. So he's going to step back here. I'm not sure exactly how far, but we're just going to put it there for now. Now the hip straightens out. Yep. The hip will go back since he's reaching back with that leg. And I feel like I could push the hips a little bit more sideways here. Let's actually grab the other foot as well. Just gonna nudge them over to the side. Specifically so that as he comes back onto this pose, we can move it back a little bit. A little bit up. Now, this is something I will pay attention to in my blocking, is just how far the hips move. It's similar to what we were talking about in the extremes workflow. I'm looking at my extremes. So if I look at my first pose to the one I'm working on right now, see how the hips are, so this is the first pose, this is the one I'm working on right now. The hips are further screen left. I'm gonna pay attention to that. It doesn't mean that I have to follow it, but it is a detail that's going to allow me to figure out the spacing and how far I should be going, and I'm not just going to get this random motion. At any point I can change it and just go, nah, I think I want to exaggerate that and go further, but it is my choice. Let's reset the spine here. Whenever you reset controls, you get fun stuff. And I think this is one of the big elements here is, as you're animating, it is always your choice. You are choosing to do things in your shot. And you do not want to just let the computer do everything for you. And as well, you do not want to just wing it and hope for the best. You need to think things through. Why are you doing this? My reference has it a certain way. Does that mean it's a bad thing? Does it mean I have to change it? Ask yourself these questions. Now, one thing I'm feeling here is that the chest comes up a little bit higher. I just feel like there's a little bit more bend in the back here, so I'm gonna bring the hips back up just a little bit more. Get that contrast in there. You can even see in the head how high it bounces back right there. So let's get the head back up. Let's see. How much do you rely on the root controls movement for the hip movement compared to the dedicated hip control? My typical workflow is that I mainly use the cog. That's the main hip control. or the main mover control. I use the dedicated hip control for refining a pose later on. So for example, a good moment for this is going to be right here. His butt is kind of creating a weird silhouette. So I might use the dedicated hip control to kind of push that a little bit more and just kind of refine that without affecting the entire body. That's my typical workflow. I know some people who use the dedicated hip control for most things. If I'm animating an IK, I will tend to use it a little bit more. But yeah, it's really just kind of, I like to have controls that I can use to polish things. So by keeping the hip control kind of untouched, I get that extra little bit of polish I can use. I hope that makes sense. And I'm not saying that is the way to work. Everyone is different. Honestly, it's whatever works best for you, how it works best in your mind. And when you get into like the polish phase, that it's going to not screw you up. For me, I find that if I start using the hip control too much, I start getting this kind of disconnected feeling in the body that takes a little bit longer to work out. By using the cog more, I'm able to get a cleaner feeling throughout the whole body. It starts to connect everything together. Let's just reset these. You'll notice that I will often zero out some controls. I like to do this just so that I'm starting a pose fresh and I'm not building on potential mistakes. That's not to say that like I know I'm constantly screwing up and making a ton of mistakes. Not at all. Although you never know. It's more that as I'm rotating, sometimes I'll just kind of rotate in all three axes at once here. And if you're not careful, you can start to get some really weird rotations. And this is where you can start running into gimbal lock and like all sorts of Euler flips, things like that. So by resetting my posing every once in a while and just resetting the controls, I make sure that if I did accidentally hit an Euler flip at some point, that it's not going to affect the rest of my animation. That I'm going to be able to go through and it's just going to be one little section, and then the moments that I zeroed out are now working correctly. So it's more of a precautionary thing. Let's see. Coming from C4D, I never heard of or seen a cog before, just the simple hip controls. Cogs are amazing controls. So on good rigs, what the cog does is it is not just a hip control. That is the key to a good cog. A cog, and the reason why it's called a cog, is it's the center of gravity. And in general, our hips are our center of gravity. So our center of gravity is technically in a human, our center of gravity is like more in the stomach area. For men and women, it's a little different just because of the weight distribution, but honestly, it depends on your weight as well. But in general, it's the torso area. Now, the cog control, which is what makes it so powerful, is it's a control that allows us to change the center of gravity as well as just kind of animating as our hip control. So for example, if I needed this character to spin or do something, but he has to do it from his chest, that's the center of gravity at this point, I can create an offset here. I'm just gonna do this here. And now my cog is up here in the chest, and as I rotate him, he's rotating from that upper chest. Now he's doing this weird little dance. If I need him to maybe grab onto something with his hand and spin around with the hand, I just move it so that the cog is in the center of the hand here. And now, as I spin it, he's spinning from that point. Now the hand, since it's in FK right now, is going to be weird. But you can see how he's spinning around this point. That's the power of a cog. So be aware of that. You can use that to save a lot of time. Especially, for example, if you have a character who's going to swing from a branch and he grabs on, you put the cog up to where the branch is and where the hands are, and you can just animate one rotation, whoop, and you get the whole flip. Versus having to move the hips and then rotate it and then get the line to work, and it's just a pain. Yeah, resetting controls also helps to keep things on model. That is a good point. It's very easy as you're animating to kind of get lost on how your character was supposed to look and fall into like these kind of new poses and kind of exaggerated moments. So by pushing or by resetting the controls, it is a nice way of just kind of, that's what my character's supposed to be. Okay, this is not bad. Hey, Doggy-san, thank you so much for the sub. I really appreciate that. Aw, thank you so much. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say something and then I got distracted. I'm so easily distracted. Was something to do with the pose. Okay, yeah, so this pose here, it's not great. It kind of just, I feel like it bounces back a little too much. And I think partly that's because of my translate X. Yeah, so again, graph editor, super helpful. See how far it's bouncing right here? If I look at the translate X here, it goes in. Let's actually mark right at the hips. It goes forward, and then it comes back. See how it gets to about the same point between these two poses? I'm bouncing it way too far. So I'm going to actually bring it down below the other key right here. This is a similar concept as thinking of the extremes workflow. I'm using my reference as a guide to figure out how much I should move or how little I should move something. I'm not trying to copy it. As you can see, like, we're changing things up quite a bit, but I'm still using my reference to make sure that I am not moving the hips just willy-nilly and, oh yeah, they move left and right. Haha, well, good enough. No, I want to make sure that the momentum, the mechanics still work. And I can use my reference as a guide for that. And already that feels much better. He doesn't feel like he's snapping back right here. Actually, did I move him down somehow? Feels like he should be a little higher. That leg should be straight. Probably overextended, actually. Okay. That's feeling pretty good. Okay, let's keep blocking it in. So, take everything, set a key. Now we're getting into a big pose change here. So, this foot, very easy, it gets flattened to the ground. Boop, done. Haha, foot pose complete. From here, now that I know where that foot is, I can just balance his hips over top of that foot. I'm just gonna bring him down a little bit. Make sure his knee is not pointing in a weird direction. Like so. The other foot's starting to come up off the ground, so we're going to be able to get that working pretty easily. Just kind of bring it up. Even though we can't see the angle of the foot, I always like to pose out the foot. Otherwise, it always distracts me. Let's bring that knee in just a little bit. Okay, so as you're creating a pose, one important thing is to know what you want out of the pose. If you're just kind of, oh, here's a pose, move it. You're going to potentially get a good pose, but it's not going to be as good as it could be. So here, I want to know that I'm pushing my lines of action. So as the poses are going through, we've got all of these different punches right here. And I want to make sure that they build up in intensity. So like right here, it's going to be kind of the punch. We really push that curve in here. And the line of action should really kind of flow through here. And we really want that good, solid bend in that body there. So really push that here. Now, with that said, when we go earlier, we don't want to just do the same pose. Like I don't want to just do this and with the arm just a little higher. I want to build into it. So here, I might actually aim for a little bit straighter. And it's going to be more like this, kind of tighter. And I'm just kind of looking at my reference, but I'm planning it out. What is the line of action? How straight do I want this line of action versus the other one that's going to be much more kind of curved out this way? Thinking through all of this before you actually get into your posing really does help in making it so that you're not just, what would be the word? Just winging it and hoping for the best. And may I ask, what was the black curve showing the graph editor? Ooh, that's a good question. So the black curve that you're seeing, let's say right there, this is a buffer curve. A buffer curve is a snapshot of a curve, and it's basically a super undo. So yesterday we had done a pass on this using the extremes method. We animated this shot using the extremes method, just kind of blocking in the hips. Now, as we were going through, I didn't delete the animation and just get rid of it. I saved it as a buffer curve first. So that's the animation here. That's the old animation. And then I deleted the keys and it still saves it. What that means is at any point, if I want to kind of go and see what my old animation looked like, I can take all of my curves here and hit this button right there. So the first one will save your buffer curve. That's the buffer curve button right there. The other one is the swap buffer curve. So now this will take my animation and I didn't freeze and swap the curves. So now my buffer curves become my active curves become the buffer curves. I hope it didn't freeze because I haven't saved. See, this is another important thing. Save often and save before you do any big changes like hitting a buffer curve button that's going to do every key on your whole shot. Because yeah, things like this can happen. So I think it'll resolve itself if we just let it sit long enough. But there you go. Okay. Now the problem is I have to hit buffer curves again. So now you can see this was my old animation using the extremes method and we had only done the hips. It's still in there. So that is the important thing. I can't save it now or else I'll still lose everything. So I have to hit the buffer curves and I hope it doesn't crash and then I'm going to save or else I've lost everything either way. So yeah, those are the black curves, buffer curves. No worries. That's on me and having to learn to save a little bit more often. Normally when I'm blocking, I try to save like every 2 or 3 poses, just to make sure that I don't lose too much. Depending on the complexity, sometimes I'll try to save even every pose. So I do a pose, okay, do a quick save, and move on. There we go. Yay. So let's save. There we go. So the nice thing with the buffer curve in this case, because I already kind of animated my extremes, I can actually see how my animation is comparing. And you can already see how much more I'm exaggerating my poses. Like my most extreme translate X before was going here. Whereas now I've already started putting it up here. I'll probably bring it back down a little bit, but we'll see. This is not my grease pencil. This is Blue Pencil. It's a great plugin. The Blue Pencil plugin right here. If you like grease pencils and you like to use them in your shots, I do quite a bit. I forget the exact price. It's like $70 or I think maybe a little less. $30 to $70 within that range. It's very nice. It gives you a lot more options. It's much more powerful. You actually have layers, which is really cool. Yeah, it's a great plugin for Maya, especially if you're if you really like to use the grease pencil tool. Maya's grease pencil tool is okay, but it's very limited. It's just not that great, honestly. It does its job, and we can say about that. Now, a great grease pencil tool is Blender's grease pencil tool. That is a wonderful grease pencil. Okay. So, just getting the pose in the arm here. As you do that, your arm twists, goes into a supine position. And, oh, did I reset my follow line? I did. When did I reset that? Okay, just on this pose. Phew. Follow line is, you saw how when I was rotating the shoulder, if I have this off, the whole arm moves with the shoulder. I'm not a fan of that unless I'm doing a big spin or having a character do a flip. Because I got the angle of the arm, now I just want to connect the shoulder into that. So, yeah, I'm really not a huge fan of follow line for a shot like this. If I don't need it. Okay. Bring the elbow in. So I'm getting the arm poses in here first before I'm doing the body, just so I can kind of, as I'm bending the body, I know how far I need to push the spine in order to connect it to the line of action here. And then let's actually get that head angle in there. Wow. As an animator, sound effects are a must. Let's see. Correct me if I'm wrong, but does the graph editor have a way to display a ghost splined curve, even though you are still working in step mode? I don't believe it does. I could be wrong though. So let's see. Edit. It would probably be under view, I would assume. Show results, maybe? Yeah. Show results could do it. Let's see. Let's focus on one curve. And then it looks like it's... Let's see. View. Show results. No, I don't think that's what we want. I don't think so. Maybe it's under curves. Resample? No. The smooth filter Butterworth. Makes me think of pancakes. Okay. Tangents? I don't believe so. I could be wrong though. There's a lot of new features, so you can see everything green here is the new features just in 2020. So Maya's always adding features, which is really nice. They even have different themes now for your curves, which is really cool. Especially if you're colorblind, that's really nice. They have colorblind compatible right there. Which just changes the colors of your curves. So that's classic right there, which I'm not a fan of. It's too light of a gray for me. I tend to like dark views. So let's go theme and let's see what colorblind compatible looks like. You know, I should probably keep it on colorblind compatible simply because I never know, like, that people watch the stream could be colorblind. And this could actually be helpful. I love Castlevania. And the sad thing is I've never really played a Castlevania game. I just really love the music. Oh, so I'm actually colorblind, but I don't mind. Well, this is a good question. Do these curves now read better for you? Because honestly, I'd much rather, like, it makes no difference to me in my case because they're pretty much the same. But if they read better for other people, then I would definitely prefer that people can actually see it, and it's just more helpful for everyone. So yeah, I guess I'll leave it on for now. It's not going to hurt anything. Oh, my pleasure. This is one of my favorite things of the stream is like when people ask questions that it's like I don't know, and I get to learn like something new about Maya or whatever I'm doing. For example, I didn't realize that Maya had a colorblind mode until just now. So that was a great little find for me. I'm happy I found that. I'm pushing the line of action here just a little bit more. I really want, even though this is going to be like the straightest this whole moment is, I still want it to feel like it's got some sort of directionality, and I'm looking at the side of the body here. See how straight that feels? I want to exaggerate that. I want that to start feeling like we're seeing a bit of a bend in there, and part of that is the hips. Getting a little bit more rotation in the hips earlier, so that we can get a little bit more bend in there. The X looks red. Yeah, so X is red, Y looks white, and Z looks blue. Okay, yeah, that's correct. So X is red, Y looks, Y should be like a very light kind of teal green, and the Z should be like a darker blue. So that is correct. Really, honestly, I think the only difference from the classic colors is the rotate Y feels a little more pale green versus like a bright sharp green. So like honestly, for me, it makes almost no difference. I actually kind of like this. It's a more relaxing color. Okay, the head angle here is not quite right. Specifically the neck. I feel like I'm seeing too much neck right now. I'm not going to worry too much about it just yet. Mostly because I want to get the other poses in so we know how it builds. Now, this is a very important thing, is I don't have to go... I usually don't do this, but I'm just going to show it for sake of demo purposes, is you don't have to go pose to pose to pose in a straight way, in the sense of like, I start on frame 1, and then I go on frame 10, and then whatever's next, whatever's next, whatever's next. Instead, I can just go further ahead, and I'm going to go to my most extreme, which is, I feel it's kind of this one is my most extreme. I'll set a key here, and then I can work on this one, and then go back, and kind of find the middle point between the two. Now, can I change colors for curves whenever I want? Yes. So you can do this. I wonder if they have it in the graph editor here. Curves. Yeah, color preferences right here. So you can actually change your graph editor to whatever colors you want, which if you look at Sir Wade's videos, he actually does this, where he has X, Y, or translate X, Y, and Z as red, green, and blue. And then I forget the other colors, but the rotate X, Y, and Z is something like yellow, like I think is yellow, purple, something. So every attribute is a different color. You don't have like translates and rotates and scales as red, green, blue, red, green, blue, red, green, blue, which is really nice. And it makes it very easy to see, okay, what's a rotation curve, what's a translation curve, what's a scale curve. That's really nice. I personally don't like to do that, specifically because I teach a lot of like intro to Maya classes. So it would be more confusing to students when they open it up and go, oh wait, why don't my curves look like that? Yeah, it's, if you want to change it, you just go in there. So graph editor, go to view, theme, color preferences. If you don't have the latest version of Maya, or maybe you're using an older version of Maya, you can find that under Windows, settings, preferences, color settings. Yeah, and then just find your graph editor right there. So both, it leads to the same place. Okay, so let's push this pose here. So leg comes out. Honestly, as I'm animating this, I know that leg is going to be kind of in the air this whole time, and you can see how much it shakes around. Something I can do is I'm going to just snap this leg to FK and then animate it in FK. This is just going to be easier to deal with and not have any weird stretching. I can very easily control each element a little bit separately and get a nice sense of overlap in here. So you can see it when the leg is in the air, FK is way easier to pose. Not all the time, but in this case it's definitely going to be much easier to work with. Okay, now the hip is going to come down, I believe. Actually, yeah, it actually goes up. But we definitely go further back. So what I'm doing here is I'm comparing my two poses, and I'm trying to capture the small like twists and movements of the body to get just a little bit more of a interesting pose change in here. So we get something like that. Now this is where the body's really going to compress in. Let's see. I have one more question. Is there any way to use a quick selection assess if I hide my shelf? If you hide your shelf, what would be a good way? You can set a shortcut key to your quick select set. If you wanted to, that would allow you to use it even though you don't see the shelf. So right now I don't have the shelf active, so I can't use anything that's on the shelf. But if I go in here and turn on my shelf again, let's say I've got one for, well, I'll just create one for the spine here. I'm always selecting the spine. So I'm going to go to create sets, quick select set. We'll call this spine, add to shelf. If you right click on it and go to edit, you can, I believe, where is it? I think you can set a hotkey somewhere. You might actually have to go into the hotkey editor. Actually, I wonder if we can set up a pop-up here. Let's see. I've never actually really played around with that. Let's see. Doot. Add menu item command. Let's call this custom menu. Okay. And then does it show up here? I'll have to read more about that. But anyway, we're focusing on this. So if you don't see it here, what we can do is go to Windows, Settings, Preferences, and then go to Hotkey Editor. And we should be able to set a hotkey for that command there. So, or you would just do a custom script. That would probably be the easiest. So what I can do is go in here, select that script right here, and then I'm going to create a custom script. And let's see. Oh wait, that one's locked. I always forget how to. No custom scripts have been saved. It is. How do you create a custom script? Select an edit hotkey for options and select it to their hotkey category. Oh wait, yeah, duh. The runtime. You have to go to the runtime command editor right here. And then I'll hit new. This is going to be my spine script. So I could type a description, select spine. I'm going to put that in there. Save the runtime command. Oh, and make sure. Let's make sure the name is unique here. Spine command. And then save. Okay, there we go. Now I can take this and I'll set it to my, which hotkey? Let's go to 8 here, since that one wasn't used. Oops, 8. And hit save. Okay, so now every time I hit 8 on the keyboard, I run that script. And with this, anytime you make like a selection of commands, you can just quickly update your hotkey and have that happen. So once again, get your script, your quick select script going there. And what's going on, Maya? Oh, I know what's going on. My control key is jammed. Interesting. Come on, control key. Let's go. There we go. So for some reason, yeah, it's still going on. Interesting. One of my hotkeys is stuck. So what I can do is let's save, because that's always a good thing to do. And then I'm just gonna close Maya and reopen it. There is a solution to this that doesn't close Maya, but I always forget about it until this happens. So I'd rather just close it. And luckily I already have a version of Maya open. So hey, see, that one works. So now I can just go to File, Open Scene, and open that up. Actually make sure the first one saved. Good. And there we go. So that's one of those little bugs that it will happen once in a while. Like I said, there is a solution that will fix the hotkey thing. Sometimes it's like the right click will stick. Just doing a quick save and then restarting doesn't take that long. And where's the menu? So what happened here is there should be a menu that comes up that says like, oh, this is a educational license, and that's opening up. Okay, good. Haha, there it is. So we're back in business. We're still animating. So let's go through here. So hopefully that helps with the shelf. The big thing is, hey, DQ Creative, welcome, and thanks so much for the raid. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Hello. We're just blocking out a shot here. And let's see, did my language get changed? Yeah, my Canadian keyboard. Oh, interesting. Oh, I know why. I know what's going on. We were just doing a demo on changing hotkeys, and I think I switched my hotkeys off of the default. So let's go through here and double check. Good. Save. And this is the other thing. Notice how I've got a control selected and my timeline isn't showing anything on here. This is a cool little feature in Maya. And we showed this yesterday, but it's a fun feature until you forget that it's on, and then you can't do anything like I was doing here. Right now, the timeline is set to only show the keys on attributes that I have selected. So for example, if I select the Translate X, you can see the keys just on the Translate X. Now in this case, everything is keyed the same, so we're going to see the keys on all of the same controls. But as soon as I deselect and don't have any attributes selected in the channel box, there's no keys on the timeline. You can change this just by right-clicking on your timeline, going to Display Key Ticks, and right now it's from channel box. You want to typically set it to active. Now, whatever you have selected is going to show your key ticks in there, and now we can start animating properly. So it's a nice feature, especially if you're using a layered workflow or an extremes workflow like we were doing yesterday. And there's a lot of other features in there. So for example, you could do all affecting or layers, active and selected, or just selected, just active. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Yeah, it helps a lot, especially when you're doing a layered workflow, because layered, you're going to have key ticks on certain attributes and not others. And we can actually kind of do this right here. Let's take our translate X, and I'm just going to add a few more keys in here. So if we look at this, look at the timeline, see how we can see a bunch of keys all throughout, right through here. Now, the problem is not every attribute has all those keys. So if I'm looking at my translate Y and I want to scrub through, you'll notice that there's no key right here. Why am I hitting that pose if I don't want to see it? I just want to go to the next key. Once again, if you go to display key ticks and just switch it to from channel box, now if I select my translate X, the key ticks you'll see change compared to the translate Y. Now I scrub through, translate Y just goes to those key ticks there. Translate X goes to each of their key ticks. So very useful when you're doing a layered method. Aside from that, not super useful. Like it's helpful in a lot of cases, but layered especially, oh, so much better. See, I was just doing a layered workflow and my keys are everywhere in different controls. So yeah, and then when you want to frame through and just see the keys on the one control, when you have like a layered workflow and that's really in depth, you're gonna have keys on every frame. Like one control might just have 3 keys, but your timeline is gonna be filled. And that makes it very hard to just like, okay, one pose, next pose, how does that feel? How does these 3 keys work? And you're having to jump through so many. It's a nightmare. Yeah, I love that feature. It's really nice. Okay, so here I'm really trying to get the bend in the spine here. So I wonder if take it. So let's take this. I'm looking at the view from the front here so that I can get the body to compress properly. Not just looking at it from the side here. And I'm really trying to exaggerate the direction of the punch here. I can even push this a little bit more this way. Let's get a little bit of a bend in there. Okay. Angle of the head is leaning forward. If ever you're having trouble kind of getting a shot to work, look at your angles. Oftentimes that's going to give you a nice indication of where you have to go with something. So what I mean by that is, as I'm looking at my head, I will just, let's turn on my grease pencil tool again. I'll just take a quick look at the angle. So look at my forehead, look at the chin. There you go. There's the angle. And that'll give you a starting point to work from. If you're just trying to like guess and not really paying attention, you can get some really weird stuff. And Tara, thank you. Totally forgot. I really need to get better at remembering to drink water. You'd think like a basic human function, I'd be able to do that at least. Nope. Something's going on here. Okay, good. So the reason the spine is looking a little weird right now is because we're starting to get into this really extreme bend. I need to start breaking up the spine. When you start really bending the body forward like this, you can't really just move all 3 of them together anymore. The spine needs to have a little bit more rotation in the lower spine compared to the upper spine. That's just anatomically correct. Our lumbar region, the lower spine, is what really bends. Now, on top of that, I could actually translate this and kind of start exaggerating the pose that way. I'm gonna save that for later. I don't want to start translating things and kind of getting a lot of extra motions in there just yet. I want to make sure that my core motion works first. Once I have that, then I can start to exaggerate things. So I'm just checking here, see how the poses feel. Where am I feeling that motion? Hips moving, good. Chest compressing. If I put my mouse cursor here, I can see that the head moves forward. That's good. Chest moves back. That's good. That's what I'm getting in my shot. Head forward. So that basically tells me that my mechanics are working correctly. Again, I am not trying to copy my reference. That's the big thing. Oh, Conky Kong, thank you so much for hanging out and asking some questions. Hope you have a great day. So I'm not trying to copy my reference. Not at all. What I'm doing is I'm using my reference as a guide to know that my mechanics are working and that I'm not getting just random motion for the sake of motion. To me, that's very important. I want to make sure that my movement is based on reality and then exaggerated and improved in many ways, hopefully. At least improved so it looks more visually interesting. And like you get a better silhouette, you get a better, like, just better pose in general. But I don't want it to just be my reference. So this pose definitely needs to be pushed a lot more. I'm not a fan of that. One of the things I'm not a fan of, and you actually see this in the actual reference, if you draw a line from the head down, see how it lines up right with the hips? This one is kind of too far forward. I want it to be further back. This is what's going to make him feel like he's kind of punching and like there's a little bit more like push back as he's doing it. Versus right now, because his head is further than his hips, it creates the feeling that he's leaning forward as he punches instead of doing this kind of reversal. So I want to push that back a little bit more. Now, do live action VFX movies cheat cameras and use squash and stretch? Yes, not as much as you would with a cartoony shot, but they do it. The big difference is that they need to keep things more realistic, and while you will exaggerate things, you always do, you really need to watch that you're keeping the exaggeration on a realistic level. So it's going to be typically a lot less. Yeah, that feels better. The head's moving back, which I'm not a fan of, but I think what I need to do is move the head back here. It's not that my other pose is not working, it's that this one isn't. So yeah, you will cheat things in VFX. Just to a smaller degree most of the time. Yeah, that's better. So now you can see how that forehead moves forward a little bit. There we go. That's better. Okay, so we went there. We went one pose ahead. Let's actually take this now and go back a pose right here. So you notice that I skipped one. And actually, I need to double check that my settings and preferences are set back to clamped and stepped, or else I'm going to get some weird splines in here. So I went one pose ahead, and the reason why I did that is now when I go into this pose in the middle, I can use it as kind of a, since I know where it's going right here, the hips need to go a little higher too. Since I know where it's going, I can now block it in just a little quicker. Yeah, that's too small a value change. I want that higher here. And I'm noticing my hips. Yeah, okay, good. So they should go up here. Okay, so now when I go into this pose right here, we can see my reference changes. Let's actually change the arms. The reason I want to change the arms is it's going to make it very clear which pose this is. So arm tucked in, right into the armpit there. Other arm stretched out. Yo. Gotta add the sound effects. You know, when I started animation many years ago, I was always like kind of self-conscious about doing sound effects, and it's like I'm just working on my own. It's not like there's anyone here watching me do it. And I would always like be very self-conscious about I shouldn't make sound effects. I should be more professional as I'm working. Even though I'm just on my own, a student. And now I teach Q&As, and I'm like on a stream, and all of that has gone out the window. And now I'm just doing stupid sound effects every time I animate. And it's wonderful. I love it. And this is something you'll see in studios as well. If you're working at a studio, there will be moments where you're going to just turn around. You're going to be seeing your fellow animators making weird sound effects, just doing strange things. I remember one of my friends, and she was one of my mentors as well. She was working, I believe it was her. It might have been someone else. But they were working on Game of Thrones, animating the dragons. And she was animating the dragons, and she turned around at one point to kind of see what everyone was doing and take a break from her own shot. And she saw one of the animators standing on their chair, like feet on the chair, crouched down, and just like flapping their arms on the office chair as they're just kind of spinning around, trying to figure out how the arm motions should work. And it was just one of those moments that was like, oh, we're all like this. And I just love that. Like the fact that animators are just these weird goofballs. It makes me happy I chose this career. I do sound effects and we all understand what it means. Exactly. That's the big thing with sound effects is it adds clarity to what you want to say and do with your shot. Oddly enough, you'd think it would be more chaotic, but honestly, it actually works pretty well. So you can see here, by having the shot of where I want to go, I can actually start working in the graph editor a little bit more. And I can use this as a way of building up my shot. So I know this is how far my rotate X, for example, is going to go. So here I can kind of find a middle point. And in this case, I want to ease a little bit before we get that kind of kick in here. So it's going to stay straighter, and then so I'm just going to make sure that this eases out. Even though we don't see a curve, I'm going to favor the other key here. And this can help speed up your workflow in a lot of different ways. It's not something I do all the time, but it does help. Okay. So let's get that leg up. The upper leg basically gets most of the way. So once again, this is where the graph editor can come in handy. So the upper leg, see how it kind of comes up most of the way up here? I can just get that almost all the way up here. And then it's going to go that way. So it comes in and then around. And why am I not seeing my other keys? Oh wait, yeah, FK. Duh. I was on my FK control. So now we get that little bit of a rotation in that leg, and that's why the FK leg is really nice in this case, because it lets me just get that extra little bit of spin on the leg much more easily. And I think I'm gonna kick it out a little bit more here and then let it bend a little bit more there. Now we see a little bit of the toes right here. I'm just gonna try to hide that. It's just gonna distract in the shot. Just have a little toes go right at the bottom edge. It's gonna be weird. Is your buffer curve, or if your buffer curve is in auto and keys in step, oh yeah, it doesn't matter. The buffer curve saves the curve the way it was. So, and for the next question, what is the black curve in the graph editor? That's the buffer curve. It's a snapshot of what the curve used to look like. So I had a different animation here at the beginning, and it saved a buffer curve. So here you can see this is a preview of what it used to look like. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but let's actually show how to use it. So let's say I'm working on my curves and I want to start making some changes, but I like what I have and I just want to experiment. So what I can do is I can take all of my curves, I'll select them, and then hit this button right here. This will do a buffer curve snapshot. Boop. It saves the buffer curve. Now I can take my hips and then I can go, for example, well, what if I want to go up here and maybe down there and like just change everything. Like maybe I want to do this. Okay, well, how does my shoe? What did I do? So we did this. Do I like this? Yes, no, I'm not sure. Well, let's compare. Swap buffer curve. It swaps what I saved before. Now I can compare this. Okay, that's what I have. Okay, maybe I want the other version. Swap buffer curve, compare. Now this is a very quick thing where it's just 3 keys, but you could do the entire animation and make a whole variant of your animation and easily just swap back and forth to compare which one you prefer. Or if you're not sure if a change is going to work or not, maybe like I have to change this curve, but it could ruin everything. Save a buffer curve, do the change. If it does ruin it, swap back. It's like a super undo button. It's really powerful. The buffer curve is one of the best features in the graph editor. Yeah, it stores everything. It saves the curve the way it was. So timing, spacing, all of it. It just, think of it like it just saves a copy of those old curves exactly how you had them. And that's it. So for example, all of these curves are in step mode. So if I take this and let's take this curve and put it into auto tangents, you'll see that my buffer curve is still in step mode. You can see right there. It's kind of hard to see when it's in step mode. But if I swap it, you can see that the other curve is in splines. So it just think of it like a snapshot. It just saves the old curve, and then the old curve won't be updated. It won't be changed. It is just that. And then you can swap back to it at any point. It's very powerful. So for example, if you're going to start tweaking your tangents and start cleaning your curves and splines, you can save a buffer curve before you do that. That way you can kind of compare and go, okay, did all of this tweaking of my tangents actually make my shot better? Or hit back, no, it was actually better before. Let's reset it and then start over. And it works per curve. So maybe you find out that, yes, everything worked out, but my translate Y, man, I messed that up. You can just revert your translate Y. Everything else stays the same. It's just the one curve you have selected. So can I flip between auto and stepped instantly? Yeah, you could do that with the buffer curves, although honestly, if you're going to just swap between auto and stepped, you can just do this. Like, just, there you go. So I would just do that if you're wanting to switch. The buffer curve is more for tweaking or changes, big changes and things like that. think of it like a super undo or a comparison so that you can choose which one you prefer. It's not really a swapping method of like, oh, I'll do a little work in step mode and then, oh, let's go to auto tangents and do a little bit more work, because you're picking one or the other. You can't work in both and kind of swap between. So for example, if I use these, I can make a change here and go, okay, maybe I'll tweak this. Let's see how it looks in splines. Okay, go into splines. Okay, maybe make a few more changes, go back into step mode. I can do that. Buffer curves, it's like one or the other, and it'll reset everything. So you don't want to use it as like a comparison tool or sorry, not a comparison, but like a workflow where you just kind of, you'll iterate on these. It's either a direct comparison or a switch. Gonna move that arm there, really get that clavicle in there. I want that silhouette of the shoulder in there. Okay. So we're looking at this here, and once again, compare your shots compared to your reference. So what am I seeing? Well, one, this arm is way too far back. We're losing the entire silhouette. So let's kind of bring it forward here. That's a little better. I think I can move the clavicle here just to get a little bit more of the shoulder in there. I could also probably twist the body too. Not quite as twisted. I want to see a little bit of the shoulder silhouette there. But the other thing that I can do is see how in my reference the head is actually going down. The hips are going up, but the head's coming down. That's because the body is bending and twisting a little bit. I'm going to try to push that a little bit more. So something like that, which means that now the hips have to be pushed. So something like that. That already feels a little better. Okay. And then let's push the lower spine just a little bit too. The other thing is I can start lowering the translation of the head. Normally I don't try to put too much translation on the head. Because this shot's so extreme, I don't mind pushing it a little bit. There we go. So now we feel that head kind of going down as he's doing this punching here. Okay. Now, one thing I'm feeling is that the hips, see how if you look at the line of the leg and the line of the pants here, between this pose and this pose, it doesn't really change, and then it kind of gets this flip here. That's not bad in the sense that we want that bigger change to happen after, but it was feeling too stiff. I'm going to, no song playing. There we go. I want that to have a little bit of a change as it goes through. Okay, let's add a little bit more spine rotation here. Just a little bit more. See, how do you realize this change is from the hip and body and not the head? Which change? The hip, like what I was talking about in the hip, or like the head translation? The head translation, in this case, the reason I know it's coming from the hip is that there's only so much we can move our head around. For the hip translation, the reason I know that it's coming from the hip is I can see it happening in the pants. So as I'm looking at my reference, I can feel the rotation. I'm looking at the wrinkles or the folds or the pockets or whatever, the zipper on the pants. You look for any landmarks, and you're watching the rotations that's happening there. And that's what's going to allow you to see these moments. Now, if you can't see that, so for example, I'm doing this, you can't see the hips. You just have to know your body mechanics. To do something like this, even a side-to-side motion, your hips have to move. They have to. Otherwise, the rotation changes. I don't know if you can see the difference, but like as I do this versus this, it's a different set of movements. Both of them come from the hip, though. When you see the head come down, but you know it's the hip. Okay, so in that case, the reason I know that is because of the range of motion of the head. If you don't move your hips or your spine, there's only so much you can like move your head up and down. You can see up here, down here. So it's a lot. Mostly it's the neck, less of the head. And when we look here, like there's that head motion there that's coming down. That's too much for just the head to do right there, especially considering if you move your head down, if you go to the side here, watch what happens. See how it goes forward? Because again, it's the neck that's rotating forward that brings your head down. So from the front, it just looks like it's going up and down. From the side, it's going kind of like a chicken, back and forth. Here, because we see that the head is going down, but it's also going backwards, it's the spine doing this. So if I bend my spine and the spine is connected to the hips, it's all one thing, so they have to move together. I know that it's the spine and the hip. So it's knowing your body mechanics and how the body works. This is one of those things where, as animators, it's nice to know anatomy and stuff. It's just kind of super helpful. You don't have to know anatomy. Now, you don't need to know all the muscles and bones and all of that. But what is very helpful is knowing how things relate to each other. So, for example, here, this is one of those cases where it's really going to help to know just how these things relate. Let's see. And oh my god, it's the real Chris Pratt brother. If only I, maybe the face, but I need the body to match. I need to get on that Chris Pratt diet, Guardians of Galaxy diet, or whatever it was. He like lost, what was it? He lost like 150 pounds or something like that. It's crazy. Do I read chat? Yes, I do. I try to read chat as much as possible and answer questions, although I do get distracted once I start going on a tangent. Okay. One thing I'm noticing here is this arm is just a little too pointed to camera, so I'm gonna point it out. I want a little bit better silhouette there. Okay. One thing I'm feeling is see how far back the head is going on my reference? I want that feeling in my shot here. And right now I'm just not getting that. So I think I'm going to just try to push the hips a little bit more this way. And then let's tweak the body twist. Bit more like that. I want that movement backwards. Yeah, that's better. So we feel that kind of weight going back before he crashes forward. Aw, thanks, Blaze. That's awesome. Did we get raided again? Did I not get a notification on the raid? Hey, welcome all the raiders. You're right. English Sandwich, thank you so much for the host and the raid. Jeez, why did I not get a notification? Or maybe I did and I just missed it completely. Thank you so much. That's super nice of you. Oh, hello. Welcome. I was wondering why we had suddenly like a whole bunch of people joining. Hello, welcome. I totally missed your raid. Thank you so much. I hope your stream went well. So catching up with the chat here. So are we doing the same workflow today? No, we are doing the pose to pose workflow. So yesterday we experimented with the extremes workflow just to see how it felt. And like I was saying earlier, I wasn't a fan of it for this type of shot, which is what I was expecting, honestly. As we were going into it, it was more just for the idea of experimenting, not so much for getting a final polished shot. Now we're doing pose to pose, which is a more classic workflow, and already I'm feeling it just kind of works much stronger. And Mr. Sandwich is cute. It is a very cute emote. It is adorable. Let's see, you've got lettuce, cheese, and tomato. Now I'm hungry. Great. I feel like having a sandwich now. Oh, and the little cat bun. The haha cat. Oh, great. A Danish? Oh no, now I'm really hungry. Why are these emotes so cute and adorable and such good food? See, we're a channel that focuses on teaching English on Twitch through classrooms, games, and pop culture. Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. That's a cool way of doing it. That's a really unique way of using Twitch. I like that. We'll check that out at some point. I love that Twitch is starting to become more and more like an educational platform. It used to be very highly just a gaming platform when it started, which is not a bad thing. But it's so cool to see that the educational aspect of it and that kind of back and forth that you can get in the educational process is starting to become more accepted and pushed, especially for people who don't have access to like brick and mortar schools, or well, now that the whole like pandemic thing and everything's kind of locked down, it's just really cool to see that people are transitioning to that. See, I learned most of my English through pop culture, mostly cartoons and movies. Nice. I know from Cameron and I, we learned a lot of our I wouldn't say all of our vocabulary, but like our deeper vocabulary, like the fancier words and the deeper topics, things like that. A lot of it from video games and RPGs. See, I really want to push this arm, make it really nice and tight to the body. We're gonna get some clipping issues technically, but I don't really care. I'd rather get that feeling of the arm pressing into the body. See, that's why English Sandwich and I started the idea. We know a lot of people learn English through content online. Nice. That's really cool. That I should look for. I've been wanting to learn sign language for a while now. So that's one of those things I've always wanted to learn. I've been studying it a little bit, and I should look to see if they have some Twitch streams that have sign language. That would be really cool. I don't know why I didn't think about it. I was looking on YouTube a lot. You should check out the Knowledge Fellowship if you don't know about it. A group of Twitch educational streamers. Nice. Educational, or the Knowledge Fellowship. Let me save that and I'll check it out. Nice. On Twitch. If you have a link to the Knowledge Fellowship, definitely feel free to post it. I'd love to check that out, and if other people want to check it out, definitely feel free to post that. I love the fact that education is such a big thing nowadays. Big in the sense that it used to be so hard to learn certain things. So for example, I live in Manitoba, Canada, way out in the prairies, way up north. There's not that much out up here. Animation was one of those things that I never thought I would learn, because what am I gonna like? I live in the prairies, like it's farms and wilderness. Awesome. There's the link. Perfect. Thank you so much. Check that out. So it's one of those things where both my brother and I, we were going to most likely just do a normal job, normal for this area, and that's about it. We actually were bakers for many years before we were into the animation industry. And it's all thanks to like online education, and specifically Animation Mentor, which I work for now, which is still weird to think about, but we're working for the company that kind of gave us all of our opportunities. It's thanks to that and online learning that we were able to do this career that I never thought would have been possible. I never would have thought that Cameron and I could be animators one day. Bakers. It was fun. I still love baking. Baking is something that both my brother and I do whenever we get a chance, just because it's nice to get away from the computer and just do something that is like, I don't know, relaxing and fun and just takes your mind off of things. Especially baking pies. There's something about a good pie. Just so much fun. But yeah, the fact that online education now is not only more prevalent, but so easily accessible. Like, you've got like the knowledge fellowship here, teaching English. You don't have to go to like a community school or like some after hours like community college or something like that to learn English. You can do it from home with content that you actually enjoy and not just some English book. Not that those courses are bad in any way, but the fact that there's those options is so cool. Okay, there's something off with the leg here. It goes back, up. Okay, yeah, it's the fact that the leg is... So look at the knee here in my reference. It goes up and it continues to go up here. What's happening here is it goes up, down, up. So I know that I'm getting a little bit of a pop there. So I want to make sure that that knee feels like it's continually moving upwards here. So up, up, up. Even though it's going back and forth, we're building in that motion. Okay. Will it be a long stream today? I mean, will you have time for reviews? I'll try to get some reviews done. I want to get a blocking pass finished on this. Just to kind of get the whole thing blocked out. It shouldn't take too much longer. We've got 2 more poses to get in here. So hopefully we should still have some time for reviews. I'm hoping to at least, even if it's not going to be long reviews, at least do some reviews for people. Get that. See, sound effects. You just have to add the sound effects. Let's see. My grandparents would make a ton of, Paxki, filled with raspberry preserve for Fat Tuesday every year. Oh, whatever it is, it sounds good. The fact that it has raspberry preserves, it's like, oh, yes, please. Okay, body's gonna curl up here. We definitely feel some twist going on, and the body's starting to straighten back out. So one thing I really want to get here is you can see how the hips are moving forward slightly, just a little bit. I over exaggerated that, but the head is still moving backwards. So I want to get that feeling in there, that contrasting motion. And this is one of the big things with animation is a lot of it, when people are first starting, there's that feeling that animation just has to, that is the correct pronunciation? Yes. Aha. Or no, sorry. Punchy. Okay, Punchy, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, yes, Punchy. Okay, I'll have to look that up. I'm always looking for new things to bake. Punchy. So, yeah, I was saying the in animation, one of the things that people tend to look for is just the fact that things are moving. It's like, oh yeah, it moves, great. But you want to watch how it moves in relation to other elements, and also in relation to the pose before or after it. So in this case, the hips are moving screen left, but the head is moving screen right. I really want to get that feeling in there, even in blocking, this early passive blocking, because what that's going to do is it's going to create that interesting dynamic motion versus something that just slides left and right. That's not going to be interesting. It's a very nice thing you guys doing. I remember the days when I watched English dubbed anime and I was completely blanked. I don't understand what they were saying. Yeah. Language is a wonderful thing. I've been trying to learn new languages, and I know a little bit of Japanese, French, English, hopefully English, since I'm speaking it right now. It's just I'll go through and I'll figure out later on that I never knew how to speak English. I'm just making words up and everyone's just going, sure. It's like, why? And like trying to learn sign language. I love language. It's so cool. And I love there's so many variations. It's magical in a way how, like, as humanity or humans, we've created these forms of communication that are so different and yet share so many common ideas and similarities. It's just, I love it. Is Castlevania? Yes. I love Castlevania music. And like I said earlier, I haven't really played any Castlevania games. I just really love the music. One day I would like to play some Castlevania games. One day, when I have time. The Struggle Man, my first English dub anime was an unpopular one. Daigunder was his name. Try to learn Hindi? That would be an interesting language to learn. I've always wanted to learn languages that are not, what would be the word? I guess Latin based. So for example, French and English are both kind of Latin based in many ways. You've got the Anglo-Saxon languages like English and German, things like that. I would love to learn German, actually. That would be fun. But I would definitely love to learn like Japanese. It's a language that has no connection to English. It's other than the Englishized words. It's its own thing, and I really find that fascinating. I feel like I need to bend the knee here just a little bit more. Okay. So let's see how this feels. Okay, not bad. Silhouette-wise, we're doing pretty good. It can be improved. Pose-wise, not bad. Again, it can be improved. This is first pass blocking. We are not trying to get this to be amazing and perfect. It is mostly just trying to get the core motion in here and the body mechanics. See, I need to look at my translate Y of the head. I think I can start to ease this back out here a little bit. Okay, let's get the last two poses in here. And then we'll see how the shot is feeling. So once again, I could put in this pose first, or I could go right to the last pose here. Since this is a transitionary pose, it's transitioning into this one. This is technically the more important pose. So I'm gonna go ahead to that one, get that to feel good, and then I'll know where I need to move the other parts to get into this pose. I hope that makes sense. I could start from like just build into this, but more than likely it's going to mean that I need to make more tweaks on this pose here once I get this one in. So it's going to be back and forth anyway. The language of art. That's a good, I like that. That is very true. Art is a universal language and it transcends borders. It is fascinating when you think about it. When you actually do like think about it, how it is literally a universal language. Regardless of your origin, your language, anything like that, if you draw someone a picture, you can get a message across. And let's see, do I watch anime? Yes. I love anything animated, honestly. So anime is animated, so I love it. I think one of my favorites is probably Full Metal Alchemist. I just absolutely love that one. Both Brotherhood and the original. The feet are all weird here. Don't worry about that. I'm just trying to get the body in place first. I'll fix the feet after. So yeah, I really like anime. I think, what was the last one I watched? I don't get to watch it that often. Well, I don't get to watch too many things very often just because of work and scheduling. The last anime I watched, was it Erased? No, there was something else. What was it? That's gonna bother me. I remember liking it a lot. Oh no, I set the scale wrong. No, this is fine. There you go. Ignore that moment. It's perfect. Yeah, exactly. There you go. It's gonna go with perfect Aya. We've got perfect jewels on the way. So let's go through here. Now this pose, this is not a good final pose, honestly. There is more to the shot here, so like there's more going on. We're stopping the shot here just for time purposes. If this was an actual shot that was animating for like a production or something like that, I would definitely try to make sure that this pose is not going to be this. This is like facing forward. It's just not that fun to look at. So just keep that in mind. We are doing this here because it's going to be just following the reference and keeping it like close. But ideally you should aim for something a little bit more dynamic and interesting. Okay, take the spine, get that curve in there, because there's a curve. Okay, so it's kind of got this, like if you imagine the stomach getting punched in, that's what we're kind of aiming for here, this backwards curve. His neck is a little over rotated, but that's fine. This is one of those areas where I would much rather get the silhouette here than trying to get the head to be absolutely like perfect in this view here. And we can move our heads quite a bit anyway. Oh, the astronaut, have a great lunch, and thanks for dropping by. Have you ever watched any Indian animated movies? I think I have, but I can't remember. Or maybe like I feel like I have. Ramayana, and the other one is Arjun, the warrior prince. Arjun sounds familiar. I don't think I've seen it. I know I've seen some African animated films. Those are really good. Chinese, Korean, Japanese, English, and French. I love French animated films, mostly because like I am French Canadian, so it's nice to watch something that like is in the language that I grew up with. It feels like home, I guess you could say. But yeah, I really like cartoons in general. So if it's well animated, I'll watch it. I love it. Let's see. Trying to push this here. I want to make sure I'm not twinning the pose. That's going to be very important. Make sure I'm getting the right twist in the body. Contrapposto. Get the silhouette in there. Now, part of what's going to make this feel right is going to be the face, because his face is a little too relaxed for this pose. But we're not worried about the face right now. I could do a quick face pass later on, but for now, I'm not going to worry about it. So part of the way I'm going to push this silhouette here and avoid the twinning is pushing the negative space on both arms right there, so that one contacts and the other one doesn't. The body. Okay. Like that. We'll go something like this for now. Definitely needs work. The shoulders are a little too relaxed there. Okay. Why is this channel Prep Bros? This channel is both my brother and I that host it. His schedule has gotten a little busy recently, so he's not able to host all the time, but normally it's the two of us. So I'm a CG animator. Well, we're both CG animators. He also does 2D animation and illustration. So normally it's the two of us in here. Or at least on Mondays is the two of us. So that's why it's the Prep Bros. Otherwise, it's kind of odd when it's like one person and it's just... Yeah, I can see where that feels very weird. Okay, one thing I'm noticing, my character is snapping way too far screen left here. Also, the height, see how the head is coming down here? I need that to go up. So I'm going to start straightening him out. Part of that is the hips are just dropping down too much. The hips drop down, but the spine straightens, which is what gives him the height. Let's see. There's a painful way make your curves controllers and constrain its shapes. Let's see. Ran Mohan was one of the directors in Ramayana. Nice. Okay, so looking at the head height, now it's going up. I think I can still push it a little bit. Let's see. How do I want to push it? I think let's take the neck. Use that just to get a little bit more height. And then I'm gonna use the shoulders here, and I'm just gonna push the silhouette so we don't get a straight line in those clavicles. So I had this before where it's just perfectly flat. I don't like that. That makes poses very boring. Okay. Now I still have the issue that he's going too far screen left. So I'm just gonna bring him back a little bit here. He's gonna be a little off balance, but that's honestly fine. I can always take this foot. See, this is why I wanted to do this pose first, because now I can just take that foot and position it wherever I need to bring him back into balance. And I think maybe a little further back. Let's see. Yeah, I like that. It's always stepping backwards. Makes him feel a little bit more kind of off balance. Okay, so let's see here. So we've got that pose. It's not great, but we'll call it done for now. Let's go through here, set our last pose. Now, this is a transitionary pose. It's moving through. Let's actually do a quick little thing on how to speed our process up. We need to block this out, and we've got our beginning here and our end, and in the middle, I have to repose everything. I have to move everything. I have to get everything in place and rotate. It's a lot to try and move all of that. Well, what I can do is I'll just take my keys here in the timeline. I'll just go to linear keys. Let's delete this pose. See how it already starts moving right here? I'm going to set a key and then set it back into step mode. There we go. We've got a transition. Now, are we done? No. No, this was literally just to get things moving so that we have motion in there. From here, we can now start refining our motion and favoring poses and building off of this. It basically gives us a way to start our animation work without having to repose everything from scratch. Let's see. I want to ask if you listen to music when you animate. Yes, I do. I've read and watched Richard talk negatively about music. I question his opinion. No, the translation came out perfectly. I am not a fan of that opinion. The core here is everyone is different. Everyone works differently. Everyone needs a different work environment. Some people cannot work in a noisy environment. They need absolute silence. Some people need music. Some people need an atmosphere. Like some people, they work best when they're in like a coffee shop and they've got people walking around and they've got noise of glasses and cups and like people talking around them. That's when they work best. They need that environment there. Everyone is different. So you find the way that makes you most productive. For me, if I don't have music, I find that I very easily lose focus and I start just kind of, it's not that I'm not paying attention, but I I feel like I get bored and I have to like focus on other things. By listening to music, I find that it keeps my just like a low level activation, and it lets me focus better on my work just to have some sort of beat in the background. Yeah, so exactly right there. You need noise and you're helping me right now. So some people work really well when they're listening to others, which is why Twitch and stuff really is a really cool platform. I have trouble with that, honestly. I can listen to music, but I have trouble listening to people talking when I'm working. So that is, again, it's different. Does that make my way bad and Christie's ways better, or vice versa? No, it's just different. So yeah, don't take that Richard Williams quote as like, oh well, I've got to animate without music, it's what we have to do. No, you work the way that works best for you. And this goes for everything. Like, everyone learns differently. Some people learn best when they follow along. Other people learn best when they're told something. Other people learn best when they read something. Everyone's different. It's just part of that process. Another thing is, how long do you work? Some people work best in very short increments. So, for example, they will work best if they just do 10 or 20 minutes at a time, then stand up and walk away. Other people, when they get into the zone and they're working, they're going to stay in that for hours and not get up and not do anything. That works best for them. See, my daughter studies with symphonic metal music, playing softly on her computer. Yeah, so there you go. And the type of music, there's no one good type of music to listen to when you're doing this kind of stuff. For example, I like to listen to, when I'm working on animations, I like to listen to video game music. So, like what I'm listening to now. Although I tend to listen to more like Super Nintendo, NES music. The big reason for me is that music is made to be background music. It's made to be listened to while you are playing a game and you're supposed to be concentrating on the game. It doesn't distract. It's supposed to add to the environment. And I find that works really well for me. That hip should lead back a little bit more. I also listen to like symphonic music, stuff like that. I have a harder time listening to like pop music or what, I don't even know the genres. I'm not very good with music genres. I will admit that right away. I'm not really good with like modern music, like modern, just whatever's popular on the radio right now, because I find it distracts me too much, and I start trying to listen to the lyrics and all of that stuff way too much. So you find the songs that work best for you. And this goes to anything. So for example, my brother and I, before everything got closed down, we would work out at a gym here. And when we're working out at the gym, we like to listen to like either video game music, more of the action video game music, so battle music, stuff like that, or we'll listen to epic metal, things like that, things that kind of get your blood pumping, so Sabaton, things like that. The gym that we go to here, because we live out in the country, everyone listens to country music when they're in the gym. So it's very twangy, and a lot of times very slow. And Cameron and I have a hard time working to country music. It just does not inspire a workout. But that's us. Other people that work out, that helps them. So let's see, Sabaton. I love Sabaton. Within Temptation, Nightwish. Okay, I'm checking those out because I've always wanted to find. I keep listening to Sabaton, Within Temptation, and Nightwish. What was the other one? Yeah, Nightwish. I love Sabaton's music, especially considering it's like historical and tells a story in each song. I really like that. And sometimes, like, whenever Cameron and I are just like driving to the city and stuff, sometimes we'll just listen to Sabaton because it's just got a good beat. It's just so fun. Yeah, music with a high BPM works great with workouts. If you're working out, and especially if you're doing some training for running, knowing which BPMs work best at what speed you want to work out at or like run at is really good. So I believe, I forget the exact numbers. If you're trying to run at, what was it? 10 miles an hour or 9 miles an hour, the BPM you should be listening to is like 170 BPM, something like that. I forget. I'm probably totally wrong on that. But if you just do a Google search, you can find out what BPM you should be listening to when you're doing certain runs. And basically what it does is it helps regulate your heartbeat so that it pumps blood correctly through your body and makes running to the beat easier. And this is something that when you actually watch people working out, like as animators, whenever we'd work out, we'd like just kind of watch what people are doing once in a while. And you can see when they have like high BPM versus low BPM music just based on how they're moving and how they kind of they're doing the same workout, but sometimes they'll be more intense or less intense. And it comes from that BPM just change. I'm resetting the head too hard there. Okay. I think my head angle is off too. Yeah, this needs to be a little lower. And then this, I feel like my head angle is off. I want to change it. Technically it is leaning this way, but it just felt weird. Okay. So we've got that. Is that working? Eh. I feel like this transition is a little bland. It needs something. And partly it's this arm. See how it freezes right there? Screen right? Let's try to avoid that. The elbow should pretty much stop. But the rest of the arm should kind of have a little bit of a change to it. Okay. On shoulders, I could hunch the shoulders a little bit. They're kind of, if you look at the slope of the shoulders, they're angling down. So I could bring them down a little bit. So that way it contrasts from there. And then, yeah, let's do this. And then bring them back up here. So they kind of drop and then come back. It's a good way to build some contrasting motion in here. And let's not do that evenly. This arm is going to stay up a little higher. So we'll really feel it in that screen right shoulder, how now it drops down and moves in an arc. One thing here, watch the knee. See how in my reference it goes left and then right? In my shot, it goes in and then left and then keeps going left. Is that an issue? Not necessarily, but it's something I need to be aware of and where I might need to adjust a little bit. This is a situation where you see something in your reference and you have to ask yourself, should I follow that? Or should I try to improve it and change it so that it simplifies the arc in this case? I also have to keep in mind that I've pushed the character further screen right, so their balance is going to be quite a bit off in comparison to my reference. I can't read and learn. It's very hard for me. Yeah, so I do pretty well with reading, depending on the topic. But I am a much more visual learner, I would think. See, do I have time for feedback for a 13-second animation? Let's see, what time is it? I might have time to do some super quick feedback for people. We'll see how this plays out and if there's any big changes. But I think we've pretty much got it. So let's turn off our not motion trails, but our grease pencil. That's the word I'm looking for. Layer manager, and let's turn that off. Okay. So let's see how this feels. And actually, just to compare. So this took about, 3 hours to do? Now, to be fair, we're also explaining a lot and there's a lot of tangents going on. So normally something like this would take maybe an hour and a half, an hour, something like this. Let's compare it. I'm going to open up the old shot first. And I want to compare it to the extreme method that we did before. Now, as we look at this, there's going to be a big difference, yes. But the thing that we really have to pay attention to is what we're getting out of each one. The extreme method took us about the same amount of time. And what we ended up getting, let's turn off the shelf here. What we ended up getting was a lot of motion in the hips that was very refined. Very, very refined. Close to a polish almost. That's good. But we got nothing else. That's not so good. That's part of that process. You put more time in at the beginning on each individual element. In the end, you get less that you have to do later on because honestly, the hips are polished. So you don't have to polish the hips later on other than a few small tweaks. Let my catch up here. With the pose to pose method, in the same amount of time, we have a lot less keys. We only have what? Let's actually count them. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 keys total on the whole shot. 10 frames that are keyed. So really not that much. But we keyed the entire body on each one. Whereas the other one, we just did the hips. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that we got the entire body pose, which is really good. It means we've watched our silhouette, we've watched our line of action, we've watched our posing. They can still be pushed more, and the next phase that I would do would probably be to try and do an exaggeration pass on all of that. That's sad. I opened Maya and it crashed. It crashed when it opened, and that makes me think I should probably save this. Okay. Let's try that again. Or actually, I might have a play blast. Okay. I just want to compare the first version first, and then we can look at the next one. Okay, yeah. So there you go. I've got a play blast. We'll use that instead. So this was what we had. The motion, as you can see from the reference to the hips here, we're already in splines, which means technically we've got keys or motion throughout the entire shot. And we've got the hips moving through, and it's moving. But he looks drunk. He is just kind of wiggling around. Now, pose to pose, we're definitely going to have less keys. We're still in stepped mode, honestly. So let's do a quick play blast here. Make sure I save it in a place that's actually going to pose to pose. I love this song. Okay, so pose to pose, we're going to play blast, and we're going to see how it feels. Now, this is the first play blast we've ever done, so most likely things are going to look wrong and weird, and there's going to be issues. That's fine, honestly. This is just our first pass. We can refine it from here, add more keys, refine keys if we need to. So, let's take a look at this. So, first version. Okay. Everything's moving, and we're pretty much in polish on the hips. This version, actually not bad. I feel like there's a little bit of something as he goes back here, but you can see everything is in there, and we're getting the entire story much more clearly. Now, automatically you'll think, oh, like you tend to think, wow, this is way better because look, it's working. Yes, but, and this is the big but here, and this is going to be what we work on Monday. If I take this, I'm just going to hit splines. So we've blocked out. Wow, let's imagine that it would look really, really good, and it's all like fantastic. We're gonna go into splines now. And for those of you who are animating, you already know the horror that we're gonna see. Let's just watch and see what happens. Oh, and make sure I play blast from the right camera. That'll help. Okay. So, yeah, the nightmare is coming. Oh boy. It's all I'm looking forward to when the leg kicks up. Yeah, right there. Yeah, so the leg, because it was in FK and we had the switch, it didn't actually get switched over into splines, so let me do that super quick. Oh, this is going to be wonderful. Okay. Oh, and forgot to set the camera. Okay, there we go. One more play blast. So, do splines like make up the in-betweens? Yes, splines are the in-betweener. They go in and fill the gap between our key poses. The big problem with that is that unless we as the animator put more information in here, we are going to get a wonderfully horrible mess. So this is our splines. Let's bring in our pose to pose. So we had this. Looks pretty good. Yeah, like we feel that energy. Oh yeah, it needs a little bit more work, but not bad. Let's go into splines. Honestly, surprisingly not bad. It's not great, like by any means, no, but it hasn't exploded. So in spline terms, it's a success. Now, why does it look now? Well, the big one is that everything is moving evenly. That everything is transitioning from one pose evenly to the next, evenly to the next, evenly to the next, and so on to the end. And it kills the entire feeling of the shot. The whole shot just loses life. So the next part of the blocking phase is that we need to start breaking things down. describing how things will move from one pose. I know the hype failed. I was so looking forward to that leg exploding because we've got an FK IK switch. I was hoping it would like flip up and like weird things would happen. It's like, oh man, where's my explosion? I want the explosion. But curse Maya. Even when I want it to explode, it doesn't do it, and then it crashes when I open it. Why? But at this point, we need to break things down. We need to describe how the character gets from one pose to the next, and add that energy back in. You can see the arm punching in our reference that we can see right here. See how like powerful it feels? It feels sharp and interesting. Whereas in our shot, there's a little bit of that, but it just kind of feels like he's just doing this. Even the hit down is just kind of like, it's slow and not that interesting. That's all the breakdowns. So that's what we're going to be doing on Monday. Taking this and then pushing it even more. Now, we might, depending on how long I want to spend on this, I'll have to think about this. I might try to do a refining pass first on all of these poses that we've blocked out, just to make a really good shot out of this. Or if I want to keep it like a quick demo, I might just go straight into the blocking plus. We'll see. I'll have to think about that, how much time I want to spend on this. But yeah, that's pose to pose versus the extremes. Both are valuable and both are good. The big thing here is that regardless of workflow, no matter which workflow you use, pose to pose, splines, straight ahead, extremes, layout, or sorry, not, well, there's a layout workflow, layered, that's the one I was thinking of. Any workflow you use, it is going to be based on what you're animating at the time. Not every shot requires a specific or any workflow. Some shots are much better with a certain workflow versus other shots. So just something to keep in mind. Looking forward to see what you are going to do after spline. Okay, yeah, we'll see. I would like to kind of do the whole process because it's something that I don't usually do. And part of this is like on this next pass, before I go into like blocking plus, I would want to refine the poses because now I know they kind of work, and then start adding bend bows and all of that process before I start like putting even more keys, because the more keys I put in now, the harder it is to put in all the finer like bend bows and stuff, and it's going to be more work later. So let's see. The difference between pose to pose and extremes. So pose to pose is you take the whole pose and you pose it out. So we get something like this. And this took about 3 hours. Although if I was animating this myself, it would be like, without explaining it, it would be an hour-ish, an hour and a half, something like that. The extremes method is focusing on one control at a time and really polishing that one attribute at a time. And in the same amount of time, we got this, which you can see the hips are pretty much polished. They're moving through, but nothing else is animated. And it's the benefit and the cost of extremes, is you get really refined animation very quickly in terms of like, you're not having to wait for the next steps over and over and over. And there's none of that like pose to pose to pose to pose. But what ends up happening is that it takes a long time to get anywhere and to get a feeling for the shot. In the same amount of time, I did all of this, and we get an idea of the shot as a whole. It needs a lot more work still, and I need to break up the pose-to-pose feeling. That's going to be the trickiest part. That's where the breakdowns come in. But it's there, and I can feel it, and I can see it, and I can refine it right away. What about holds? Does pose-to-pose animation need to add holds after this first blocking? Yes. The breakdown pass that we're going to be doing, that's where we're adding those holds. If we don't have holds or breakdowns, that
Holds and breakdowns are kind of the same thing. They're describing how a character moves or how long they will not move. If we don't have those, we get this, where the character just slides around the whole time. So we need to add those in. Breakdowns, holds, overshoots, overlapping action, all of that comes in the next phase. And you will add breakdowns and blocking plus, right? Yes. So for me, blocking plus, everyone's different. Every animator has different workflows. For me, I have blocking, blocking plus, and then splines. And then you have refining and polish. Blocking is what we just did here. Making sure the shot reads, that it's moving correctly, all of that good stuff. Second is blocking plus. Blocking plus to me is preparing for splines. Making sure that when I hit that spline button or the auto tangent to get the in-betweens in there, I have enough information that Maya is not going to make weird things happen or that my animation is going to die. I want to make sure I have my holds in there. I want to make sure my overshoots and overlapping action is kind of blocked in and put in. I want to make sure that I have lead and follow. All of that stuff is blocking plus. Splines, the spline process is you hit splines and then you fix it because it will ruin things, and now you're trying to get it back to that feeling and fine-tuning what Maya has done. That's my splines, what I like to do in splines. Some people like to go from blocking into splines, and then their spline pass is adding the breakdowns in there. I usually do it earlier. Now, to be fair, I also tend to work right in splines right away. So I don't typically block in stepped mode anymore. I block in splines, but I use the same basic workflow. Let's see, I have a question. Sometimes I don't know if changing the speed of animation from the curve or adding different keys. Like for animating a bouncing ball, it's easier to use the Y curve. But if I animate a character jumping and I need to adjust the Y curve, I should have to do it with the IK legs. So I don't know if it's convenient to use curves for acceleration. It really depends on the scenario, honestly. Sometimes it'll be easier to go in the graph editor and just adjust the curve. Other times, because let's say you've got the hips going up and then you've got IK legs going up and down, sometimes it's better to move the whole pose, especially if it's a big change. It really just depends on the scenario. Often I just have the, well, like you can see in Maya right here, get my tablet working. In Maya right here, I have the graph editor open all the time. So no matter what I'm animating, as I'm animating, I can always just go in and adjust the curve or go straight into my pose here and adjust the pose itself. So whatever is easiest for that moment, that's really it. There is no, you have to adjust this way in the graph editor, you have to do it in the graph editor. It's whatever easiest at the time. So yeah, it really depends. Keyframe Pro is an amazing tool. For anyone who doesn't know, here's the link to it. I always post the link, but it's so good. Check that out. It is a wonderful tool, especially for reviewing animation, because you can just scrub through and it's like 1-to-1. Doesn't help when I have a shot that doesn't have any motion, but like you can just scrub through really quickly and it's like 1-to-1. It's great for reviewing animation. Now, just a note here, it's something that is another thing that I like about pose to pose, or like kind of more pose based workflows, is because I was working on full poses, I could exaggerate very quickly. Look at the range of motion on this shot. The hips go over here. I wish I had, I'm gonna bring an Epic pen. So if ever you need a drawing tool to draw on the screen, but that doesn't change like based on the program, Epic Pen is free. I believe it's only for Windows, unfortunately, but it's just a screen drawing program. And I can basically just mark here. So the hips go there, and then the furthest right they go is over here. So that's my range of motion throughout the whole shot. Let's look at my pose to pose method here. Already, they've gone further. Goes over here. It's right behind the knee there. Then as it comes back, look at how far I've pushed that. Because I can see the entire pose and how the balance works in the entire pose, I can exaggerate things much more quickly, much sooner. I've not quite doubled the range of motion, but almost doubled that whole range of motion side to side. Now, is that necessary? Does more movement mean it's better? No. It just means it's more dynamic. And for a shot like this, that we want it to be dynamic and the character's really like moving and throwing himself side to side, that makes it way more interesting compared to the little tiny weight shift that I had before. And part of the reason why it wasn't exaggerated before was we couldn't see how the rest of the pose was working, so naturally we keep it smaller. Now, is that a bad thing? No, because I can literally just scale up one curve with the extreme method and then I'll get the range of motion that I need. But it's just yeah. See, I don't really understand how DreamWorks animated in that way. It's difficult and slow. It is a tricky workflow. Once you get used to it, it's not bad. Another workflow that I see DreamWorks animators use quite often is the fours method, where basically it's like pose to pose, where it's more straight ahead animation, and you just key every 4 frames. So if I was to go through here, it would be, let's just create a simple object here so we can put some keys on. So I would look at my reference here, start on frame 1, set a key. I'll go 4 frames forward, set a key. Go 4 frames forward, set a key. 4 frames forward, set a key. Set, etc., etc., etc. Like that. So if you just watch the reference here, you would get something like this. And you're just animating straight ahead, watching your reference. You're not copying. Same thing like we did here. You're exaggerating, pushing the line of action. Like, I'm following my reference, and I'm going to retime it later to make it even more exaggerated. But this first pass, I'm just using my reference as a base and building and trying to improve it. Like, you can definitely see how between this pose, let's go back here, between this pose and this pose, there's not that big of a head change here. Whereas here, I've almost got a whole head worth of difference from the up and the down. So I'm exaggerating that even more. So take your reference, be inspired by it. Sometimes you're going to change something completely. There are times when it's like, okay, my arm went up here, but I'm going to change it down so that it's just a little bit more interesting. I might actually do that here in this shot, because right now he's kind of punching in the same direction like that, and I might go up, down, down, down. So it kind of just feels like there's a more of a pattern to it versus just up, up, down, down, if that makes sense. So I might change that. We'll see. The DreamWorks method, you go every 4 frames, but again, you're not copying. And it's kind of like a mixture of pose to pose, straight ahead, and a little bit of the extremes method, where you're trying to capture as much information as you can.